Season 3 of The Warrior just completed, and I had a chance to watch it all the way from 1 to 3. Let's find out my thoughts right now. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, where I rant about movies, television, and comic books, as well as board games. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I am your host, Frank Zenka. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer. If you're interested in anything that I've written, of course, I am on Amazon. But also, if you're looking to get anything autographed, we do have a late pledge for my vampire mob set in 1950s Hollywood. The link is in the description below. We just launched that. So if you can help out with the last few pages that we have left, we can get issue 1 and issue 2. And I think I'm down to like 7 pages that I've left for art, and that's it. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the video. But in the meantime, let's jump right into Warrior. I just finished watching the Season 3 series season finale. And so each one of them has 10 episodes. I do have Max, but I didn't realize this show was on there until I saw it on Netflix. So if you either have Max or you have Netflix, you can watch all 3 seasons of Warrior. And this is literally by Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee had all these notes for this show that he wanted to do, but never did. And as you know, he created Kung Fu also, the show with David Carradine back in the late 70s, early 80s. So, Bruce Lee was a talent not only in martial arts, but he had some really good ideas for, shows. And I think that Kung Fu was actually stolen from him. But if you have not watched anything, this is actually a Cinemax show. And if you haven't watched anything on Cinemax, Cinemax does some of the best shows that I've ever seen. So if you think, oh, it's like Skinemax, whatever else, yeah, it has like Game of Thrones kind of thing where there is nudity, etc. But the level of storytelling on Cinemax is great. So Anthony Starr, that you probably know from The Boys, he plays Homelander. He was in a show prior to this, because I was introduced to him not in as Homelander, but in a show called Banshee, which is about a small town where he's a criminal and he ends up taking on the persona of the police chief or the sheriff in this small town. So he's a criminal and he's the law simultaneously. It's an excellent, excellent show. Anthony Starr, as you know, is a great actor. I like him actually much better in Banshee than I do in The Boys, because of the fact that, he plays a psychopath in The Boys, where he was a little bit more calculating and stuff like that in Banshee. If you've never seen Banshee, you should definitely watch it. It is on Max. Also, the Cinemax also had a series called Strike Back that had the guy from Blind Spot in it. And he did a lot better in that show than I thought he did in Blind. I thought he was miscast in Blind Spot. But Strike Back is another great show about a couple of military guys that are basically sent on missions. Awesome show. So now we have this third show, which is actually created by the guy who created Banshee. So once I saw the first episode, I was all in. So this show, and I'm going to go into mild spoilers. I'm going to try to keep this a short video, but I don't understand how I can do that because there's so much to talk about with this show. This show is a writing masterclass. It is a writing masterclass because it is exactly how to write a show where it keeps everything moving. It doesn't drop the ball like the end of Game of Thrones. I mean, these guys are all on the same page. Not to mention the costume design in this is through the roof. Because it takes place in the 1800s where it centers around a character named Assam, who is masterfully played by Andrew Koji, who you might know, who is the real star of Snake Eyes, of the movie Snake Eyes, where he played Storm Shadow. So I assume that he does some of his own stunts because the fighting is the martial arts in this film or in this series is awesome, awesome. And you compare this stuff to what they do on Disney and stuff like that, puts them to shame, puts the Star Wars stuff to shame. The whole production is amazing. So it takes place in 1800s. It's shot in South Africa, no less. I just found that out. They had to build all these towns because it's like a Western. So it takes place in like the Western world, but at this time, all these Chinese people are coming across, they call it the pond or the boat or whatever, and the salt. They call it the salt. Cross the salt. That's what they call it. So they've come across the salt looking for a better life, and they're stuck in Chinatown, and it all takes place in San Francisco, even though none of it's shot in San Francisco. But it's like 1800 San Francisco, and so this character, Assam, is right off the boat, but his grandfather, I believe, was American. So he speaks English, and everybody is extremely shocked that he speaks English completely fluently right when he gets off the boat. And of course, he gets himself in trouble, and we get to see, his fighting style. But he's there to find his sister because it was his fault that his sister kind of got sold off and was forced to marry this warlord. And we see her eventually in this relationship, but which he's not happy. It's obviously an older man, and he's head of one of the Tongs. So the Tong is like the if you're a godfather in like in the mob. So this is like the Chinese mob. So he's immediately thrust into this world, but we don't only see it from the Chinese side. That's what's so masterful about this is that they take this piece of history and, because a lot of the Chinese were also working on the railroad. They were, looking for gold. They were, it was a gold rush at the time, all that stuff. And, the big cities were being built at the time. And there was a lot of industry and, real estate tycoons and all that stuff was all happening at this time because everybody was moving west. The West was just getting developed. So we get a Western type of thing, but we also get, this kind of slum look where, people are, struggling to survive. And we see the other side of the coin where we see the Irish. And the Irish are fighting for their place in the world as well. Of course, they fought, in all the wars with, because they came a lot earlier. And they are trying to say we're American even though we're Irish, and now we have all these Chinese people coming in that are working for less money, and we're unemployed because everybody's coming in from China, and working for pennies. So we're seeing that kind of immigration going on, and we're also seeing the tycoons. We're seeing the mayor. We're seeing all these things happening. So we see the haves and the have-nots, and it's all this juxtaposition going on, and we're seeing characters. We're seeing characters also in the police department and how they're handling Chinatown and handling, all this stuff. And also we have Leary, who is, anytime that he has a disagreement, he's like head of the union. So he's like trying to create this union for the Irish where he's getting them employed, and then he takes a cut of what they're making. But at the same time, if anybody starts fighting with him over hiring Chinese labor, he just blows up their shit. He just blows up their business. He brings, a stick of dynamite or 12 and just blows up their shit. So you have this juxtaposition of Assam coming now to work for the Tong, where he finds his sister, but his sister is now a boss. So she's changed her name to Mai Ling, who is played by, forgot her name, Diane Doan, I think. Yeah, Diane Doan, and she's from The Descendants. Okay, so she's been in film for a long time. Also, the guy who plays Chow, I don't remember his name, but he is a tremendous actor. And he was also from Banshee. He was great in Banshee, and he's great here. He plays a completely different character. His look is completely different, and he's great. And then we also have the two cops. One cop's on the take. He's got, a bad gambling problem, is constantly in trouble. He's got a huge family. And then he's teamed up with Officer Lee, who's played by Tom Weston Jones. Again, all the acting is through the roof. It's just great. They all embody their own characters. The casting is great. I mean, you can't get better looks for some of these characters. And I'm going to talk about one more in just a second, probably my favorite character in the whole thing. So anyway, you have the cops, and then you have Tom Weston's character, Richard Lee, who is trying to be a real cop. I mean, he's taking notes. He's trying to be a CSI guy at the same time. But also, he's on the run. We knew from the start that guy had a secret. And we also we get to see interracial couples here and how they're handled. So we get to see all of these kind of faux pas kind of played out with all these characters. And then my favorite character in the whole thing is Olivia Cheng's character, Ah Toy. Ah Toy runs the Chinese brothel. But she's also a tremendous fighter, and she has tremendous influence inside Chinatown. And she is hot as shit. She is hot. And the dresses that they have her in, as well as Mei Ling's, it's phenomenal. The creativity with these dresses is phenomenal. And we get to see sword play and all this stuff. And she's like 40 years old, over 40 years old, and she is just in amazing shape. I wish I was in half the shape that she's in. But she's just great. She's my favorite character out of the whole thing. And then we also have, lesbian affair, because you would think that, I wouldn't call it woke, even though we had to have some lesbian affair in there, because of the fact that she runs a brothel. So she probably was a prostitute herself at one time. So she probably had to go in both directions. So yeah, I don't have a problem with it. So then you have Assam, who ends up being part of the other Tong, which is now he's fighting against his own sister. So she's leading one Tong, and he's like the general of another Tong, and they're fighting against one another. It's phenomenal, just phenomenal. And it goes into, what is it blood that's going to move you, or is it going to be power, and Mei Ling chooses power over blood, and Assam is the opposite. And it's all very interesting, and I love how they do the translation. So if you think you're going to be reading all this stuff, because a lot of the Chinese at that time didn't speak English, so what they do is kind of what they did with Valkyrie, where they changed everything to English. So they start speaking which eventually they don't even do. After like the first season, they don't even do it. But in the first season, they wanted to show you that a lot of these characters didn't speak English, so they would start speaking in Chinese, and then the camera would revolve around them, and then they'd be speaking English. So whenever the Chinese are speaking in perfect English, you know that they're really speaking in Chinese. And then when they're speaking to an American, where some of them do know English, all the English is broken. So they're speaking in broken English when they're speaking in English. And everything else is in Chinese, but they're still speaking English because the actors can speak English. There's only two people, two characters that are Chinese that speak perfect English, and that is Mei Ling and Assam, because again, they were grown up speaking Chinese, because speaking speaking English with an American accent. Maybe that's where I was trying to go with that, because their grandfather was American. So Hoon Lee plays Chow. He's great too. I could talk about this show forever, but what's great about this show is that the arcs constantly are changing. The loyalty is changing. The characters are always in danger with one another. They're able to bring in characters. Like, they also had a one-off where Assam and Young Jun, who is about to take over the Tong from his father, which is technically Assam's boss, they go off and they're transporting silver. Yes, they're transporting silver but they don't even know it's there. All they know is they're transporting a body. But so he didn't even tell his own son, which is Daddy June there, Father June. He didn't even tell his own son what he was transporting. So it's just him and his son. And, we also have another, one of the other characters is also gay. So you have a male gay relationship and a female gay relationship. So it's not for children. But I found that, I won't call that woke because it was organic. It's not something that they were preaching or anything like that. It's organic, and it was just like a regular relationship. But anyway, during this episode, it's one of my favorite episodes. They go in, while they're in transportation of this thing, they stop for the night at a bar / a hotel where they almost get robbed by a group of thugs, and they have to stay and fight. And it's just great. It's just just great. I mean, it's a one shot, so it's a thin story, but they do such a great job with it. So they bring in new characters, and then Assam he loses a fight, which is another thing that's great about this. All your main characters lose fights at one time or another. When they lose fights, man, they are busted up. It's not like a movie like Jason Statham where he takes 10 million hits and you never see any damage to the guy. No, when they get beat up, they are messed up, man. They're messed up for days where they have to, just lay in bed and can't even, piss without pissing the bed sheets because they can't get up, kind of thing. So they really show the heroes all get their asses just handed to them at one time or another. So they always hit rock bottom, and then we see them build back up, and then they hit rock bottom, and then we build back up. And at the end of season 3, we're seeing a whole juxtaposition of everything that's going on up to this point, which is great because by season 3, you really can't have the characters kind of stay in this momentum going on. You got to shake things up. So, and not that they aren't shook up before, because things do get shaken up quite a bit, but they shook up the entire show by the end. It's very interesting, and I can't wait to see the next season. And it's not a cheap show. I mean, the amount of extras that they have to costume, the amount of sets that they have to build. I mean, you're probably talking at $6-7 million per episode. It's crazy. I mean, yes, they're reusing this stuff over again, so that price is eliminated throughout the season. Where you're using the same sets over again, where you're using the same costumes over again. But still, it's pretty amazing. So if it's a 10 episode, you're still looking at close to $100 million per season. I mean, when I worked on the L Word, that was all contemporary, and that was $5 million an episode. So I can't even imagine 10 episodes of this. And then you have all the fight scenes and all the stunt guys you have to employ. And, Leary takes one guy and you physically see him. It's kind of like that American History X or whatever else, where he has the guy bite the curb, Norton, and then he smashes his head on it where his jaw breaks. And you actually see that. So, I mean, if you have a problem with a little bit of gore, you're going to have a problem with this. But it's... it's definitely got that Spartacus, Game of Thrones thing got going on, because gets political and all that stuff. Not political to our contemporary political, but political of the time. And I got to stress that because it's not preaching. It never preaches at you. It all is character development, and the characters drive this story. Yes, there are things that happen to them where it's not in their control, but for the most part, they are making choices that are driving the story forward, and it's extremely interesting, and I cannot tell you enough that you must watch this show. If you love action, if you love intrigue, if you love history, if you love great storytelling, this is a series for you to watch. And it's sad that I had to wait for it. That nobody's been talking about this. That I had to wait for it to come up on Netflix and say, you know what? I like stuff about history. I like martial arts. I like Chinese main characters or Asian main characters. Yeah, I'll watch one episode and see how it is. I didn't know that it was by people that I was already a fan of. So when I jumped into it, as first episode, I was already hooked. The first episode. I mean, not even the first episode, like the first 30 minutes, I was like, I'm watching this till the end, and it just kept progressing and progressing and progressing like a runaway train. I mean, the amount of stuff that they do on this budget is crazy, on a television budget. I mean, films aren't written this well. So I cannot prescribe this enough as something you should watch. So, and people should be talking about this show, and they're just not, and I don't know why. So watch it. Let's give it some love. I want it to go at least another couple, 2-3 seasons before they cancel it. And I hate for it to be canceled because nobody knows about it. So definitely check it out. It's called Warrior, and you will not be disappointed by any of it. Not one episode will you feel like it's a filler episode. It's just phenomenal. Anyway, I don't want to see. I went through it without even doing a whole bunch of spoilers. Yeah, amazing. I really didn't spoil anything except for telling you a little bit about the characters. Anyway, check it out. Also, I give this. I don't. You know me. Like my highest is like an 8. This is like a 9.8 for me. This is as close to perfect as you can possibly get for a show. It's amazing. So that's my thing there. And again, thank you for spending time with me. Make sure to share and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, well, the hell not. It's free. Ring that bell. Also, check out some of my other videos that'll pop up at the end of this one. Remember that Lords of LA is on late pledge right now on Fund My Comic. Again, we were fully funded already. So I would, there's a couple of pages now that I've gone over and above the original quote that I originally did. I overwrote so there's a few pages that I want to, that I still have to pay for, basically. And on top of that, Mark Spears and I, who does covers for Spawn and things to that effect, other comics like Power Rangers and Spider-Man and Vampirella, he and I are doing a card game based on his classic Monsters art, and it looks amazing. I just got back from Gamma, which is a board game convention where I was pitching retailers and publishers, etc. But we're going to be launching this in a couple of months. It is a deck builder area control game. It's lots of fun. We have been play testing it. It's going to be awesome. So here's a couple of the cards that I'm going to throw up on the screen. So I'll let you know when that launches as well. All right. Again, thank you guys so much for watching all the way through, and I will see you on the next one. Check out some of my other videos as well. Thanks a lot, guys. All right. Bye-bye.